Hi everyone, Vicki Key here. I go by Is About You, and I decided I wanted to spruce up my kitchen. And I had seen on Facebook in one of my embroidery groups where someone had taken regular kitchen towels from the Dollar Tree and regular pot holders from the Dollar Tree, and they sewed them together in order to make a towel that hangs from the handle on the front of your stove. And I always find those to be handy. I think they look pretty, first of all. And then second of all, you can wipe your hands on them as you're cooking. Sometimes my hands get moist. And then you can just throw them in the washer. So here's one that I made already. And I just wanted to show you what it consists of. This is just a towel. And when I lift it like this, you can see it's uneven. I'm going to show you why in a second. And all it is just a straight stitch sewn through. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, I don't have a sewing machine. How am I going to do this? You can hand sew this, especially if it's for decorative purposes, because, I mean, you're not going to be using it. It's just going to be hanging there. Now, you're probably wondering, like, why is this wider than this? It's because of my picture. I wanted the rooster to show on the front of the towel, and if I had done it straight down the center, either the head or the tail would have gotten cut off. So what I did is I laid my towel out, and I picked one side that was going to be the front for my stove, and I folded it so that the picture of the rooster showed, and it had to be approximately the same width as the pot holder. Now when I open the pot holder, you're going to see that it's not sewn straight down the center, and there's a reason for that. It's because this has to go under the handle of the stove. Let's say this is the handle. This has to go under it, and then this has to come up over it and hook on. So I'm going to show you that in a second. And I'll be right back. Hey, I'm back, and I wanted to show you that this is what it's supposed to look like on the stove. I'm trying to make sure that you're seeing that, yes. So when I unbutton this, this is what it's going to look like. So the bottom part's going to come up over the stove, the top part's going to go over, and it hooks on. And so it just hangs there, it'll slide. Now if you want it to be tighter, what you could do is get this hook, and I'm trying to pull this up and down tighter. You can get the hook, and what you could do is sew this loop that goes behind the button, sew that together either by machine or by hand, and it'll just make it tighter around the loop. And you can sew this up higher too. I mean, you have to play with it and finagle with it and see. So for Valentine's Day, I found these tea towels at the Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do right now, when I embroidered it, I had put this embroidery on it, I wasn't thinking. I should have put it down here toward the bottom, and I didn't. And now if I put it on like this, I have a feeling that it's going to be too close to the pot holder. So I'm trying to open it up and hang it on here the way that I'm going to want it to be. And I'm going to bring my pot holder, here's one I already have the thing cut off, and see where I want this to end. So it's going to be shorter in the back and longer in the front. I'm okay with that. Like I said, this is mostly for decorative purposes for me. So that's about where I want the top of the towel to be. So I'm going to pick it up, kind of like pinch it like this, and I'm going to set that aside because that's going to be my top seam. Now, with my pot holder, I need to figure out where I need the bottom seam to be, not seam. So I'm going to pull it up like this and flip it over, and then I'm sliding. You can see I'm wiggling a little bit because this is going to be where the button's going to go on my towel. So that means that this is the bottom seam of my pot holder. So I'm going to hold that together like this, and this is going to be sewn onto the top fold of the towel. I'll show you in a second. Okay, so now I know where I will have my top seam. I'm just trying to pull this out a little bit and make sure that my border over here is going to be even. so that I have as much width on one side as I do on the other side. And that looks about right. I'm just eyeballing it. So this is the fold that I made over at the stove. So this is going to have a straight stitch on this. So now what I'm going to do is just hold this on here, and I'm going to keep my thumbs, because that's where the line's going to be for the seam. And I'm just flipping the towel open. I still have my thumb there. I know that's where my line's going to be. And where'd my pin go? Here it is. It's actually what I'm going to be using to sew the button with. I forgot to bring my pins over here. So I'm just going to put this, if it'll go through. It looks like I need to change needles. This one's kind of dull. Huh. Anyway, I'm just going to leave that right there. So that shows me when I go to my sewing machine, I'm going to sew a line from here to here. Now, what if you don't have a sewing machine? Just use thread and needle, a needle and thread like I'm doing right here. You could just sew a straight line straight across. So let me go to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew a straight line. I'll be right back. Okay, I sewed a straight line, and as you can see, there are some threads over here. So all I'm going to do is just take my scissors and snip those off. Those down, and I just wanted to show you all it is a straight line. I sewed it in black so that you could see. So now what's going to happen is this part will come up under the stove, and this part will come over the handle of the stove, and now I need to put a button here. So I need to choose a button, and I will get back to you. Okay, so I found some buttons I want to use, but I wanted to show you the difference between the buttons. What works best for this project are shank buttons, and I just wanted to show you, and I keep mine like on either big safety pins or with twisty ties to keep everything together. These that have the holes, you can use them if you find a very large button, but I find that they don't hold as well as the shank button does, because it gives just that little bit of extra room underneath. So let me find another. This one here is an unusual shank button. Let me find another one here that's more of a traditional shank button. It would be something like these. They have that hole, and it has a shank that stands up on the button. Let me get the twisty tie out of the way so you can see. Yeah, so it goes through the hole here. See if I can get up close there. There you go. Yeah. So that's a shank button. It gives you a little more wiggle room. So I'm going to be using these pink ones. I had inherited a lot of buttons from my mother when she passed away. She used to collect buttons. I used to sew a lot, and every time that she would go shopping, she would find buttons, and she'd buy them if they were on sale. And anyway, she had those put aside for me. So now I'm going to show you, for those of you that sew already, this is, elementary. For those of you who don't sew, this is how I sew on my buttons. I threaded the needle, and there's like 2 strands of thread, and instead of leaving one hanging loose for buttons, I make sure that they're both together at the bottom. And I'm trying to I have the wrong glasses on for doing this. Okay, I'm trying to make sure these are pretty even here. I'm sorry, I'm out of camera. And what I'm going to do now is wrap it around my finger, and then I'm going to slide the needle under my finger and slide it under again, and then I'm going to hang on to that end there. Okay, and I'm going to pull it tight, and now I have a knot. I don't know if you can see that or not. So now what I'm going to do is figure out where my button needs to go. Oops, and it just fell and almost went under the refrigerator. That would have been horrible. Okay, so I'm going to flip this over, and my button needs to go right about here because it needs to hook on to this. I'm trying to make sure that it's laying even there. So it needs to go right about here. So I'm going to hold my thumb there as a guide, and I'm going to bring my needle, I'm trying to hold the button at the same time, and from behind, I'm going to go through all the layers of the pot holder. Okay, And while the needle is sticking out, I'm going to stick the shank of the button there. Oh, and I lost it again, and it almost went under the refrigerator again. And what that's telling me, and I'm kind of glad that happened in front of you, what that's telling me is that my knot is not heavy enough. So what I'm going to do it different this time. I'm just going to wrap the thread around my index finger, and I'm just going to push back and forth on the thread and pull down on it. So that'll make a bigger knot now. And you can probably see that. And no one's ever going to see this except you. So let me do that again. Okay. So I know this is my center because that's where the hook goes. It's right about where that row of hearts is. And what I'm doing is just pushing the needle. I'm trying to get it as close to the seam as possible. Okay, so I'm pulling it through. And now I'm going to go, I should have put the button on first. That's what I usually do. I'm going to go through the button and just kind of let it hold there. And I'm going to go right next to where the thread was. I'm trying to do this on camera, and I can't see what I'm doing now. There we go. Okay, I'm pulling through from the other side. And when I look over here, my button's on. And I do this about 5 times. I'm pulling it up so close because I'm behind the camera and I'm trying to see. And like I said, I'm wearing the wrong glasses. And this is tough fabric, I'm finding out. Okay, so here we go. I am coming up. I don't know if you can see that or not. Coming up and going through the needle at the same time. And I'm going to do this 5 times, and I'll knot it in the back, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm getting ready to make my second towel that matches the first one that I made. And what I needed to do was bring the second one and fold it on the top so that it matches the bottom of this one. So that's what I've done here. And this is going to go underneath the handle. I don't want to measure it from up here this time. This time I'm measuring it from down here because that's where it's going to hang from. I already have my other one pinned, and I'm going to sew these, and I'll show you what the final product looks like for all of these.